Members, this is page 64 in your packet, committee appointments. This is Rule 4, Section 2. Good morning, you may begin.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Thank you for allowing me to discuss this here today. As you know, last year I proposed a House Rules Amendment on the floor that will require the Speaker to appoint committee chairs from the majority party. This rule, I believe, would better honor the will of the voters. All political power is inherent in the people, and if the people of Texas vote to give a certain party control of the government to make laws, their will should be honored, and they should have the leadership that they voted for. Since that time, the people have made it their will abundantly clear. Republican voters voted overwhelmingly in last March primary, 81.24% from across the state, to ban the practice of giving members of the Democratic Party chairmanships. The delegates of the Republican Party of Texas, they voted overwhelmingly to make this one of their top legislative priorities. And then the SREC of the Republican Party voted unanimously to support this issue. And it's clear that the majority of Republican voters in the state want Republican leadership when they vote to give us the majority during a legislative session. And I believe to oppose this rules amendment is to blatantly oppose the will of the Republican voters of Texas and the people that voted us into office. Any questions?
Members, any questions for Mr. Slaton? Ms. Shantia.
Thank you. Thank you. And welcome, Mr. Slaton. Hope you're doing okay.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to just walk through it with you. Your layout focused on Republicans in the state of Texas. There are also people who are independent. There are libertarians and members of various parties in the state. Do you see it as, do you see the state government as being representative of just one party?
No. Okay. But when the voters in Texas, through the outcome of the election, shows that over 51% of the elected people to this particular body are Republican, I think it's safe to say they chose to have Republican leadership in the House. And of course, we've done that with all the statewide and including the Senate. So I feel like that, yeah, it's if the voters want that, they should be able to get it. I mean, we do it in D.C. Other states have done this, and it's not odd in legislative process. It would, from my understanding, having discussion with elected officials from other states, it's actually fairly odd that we in Texas do this.
Yeah. And so under your framework, state government would be responsive to a party, right?
They can be, yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
my view, I'll share, my view is that state government should be responsive to all people in the state, right? And I believe in God. And I also know that God doesn't sort of distribute talent throughout the state of Texas based on zip code, socioeconomic class, certainly not party, right? I think that distribution is done throughout the state and regardless of one's party, which is malleable. We've had members who've switched parties over time, and we still think they're good people, right, and worthy of sort of offering up legislation and governing in this way. So my main concern here is that ultimately you will sideline talent that comes to bear not as a Republican or a Democrat, but rather as someone who wants to be here in service of the people of Texas, the people that voted for him and the people that voted against him. I imagine you represent in your district people who vote against you, and you're very earnest about that, right? I mean,
I represent
everybody.
District 2.
Yeah, and everybody in it. Right? Libertarians, Greens, Democrats, Republicans,
sure.
And that's your charge. And so I don't know that the governance structure should be so limited. And it's funny because I was a member of a bipartisan fellowship, 12 Republicans, 12 Democrats, at the Aspen Institute many years ago. And I was talking to members which are Republican members, who were in the minority in their respective states. And they were really, they admired this feature of Texas government. And they thought it brought an interesting comity to our ability to pass laws, not as Republicans or Democrats, but as Texans, right? Taking off our partisan jerseys. And in fact, do you know when this tradition started, just out of curiosity? Because it's not a rule, it has been a tradition.
Right, given the large percentage to the minority party in '93, but there was before that some chairmanships of the minority party, but it became a bigger deal in '93.
So it started in 1975, interestingly enough. And you know who the first Republican chair was in a Democratic House? We served with him. It's Tom Craddock. And there were only 8 Republicans in the entire body at that time. So really a revolutionary idea that I think has served Texas well. And so, pardon me, there were 18 Republican members, not 8. And so, you know, I just offer that a feature of Washington, D.C., and I think you can ask most of your constituents about whether they prefer governance in the Texas legislature or governance in Washington. And I suspect, I don't know your constituents as well as mine, but even mine would say that they prefer what happens in Austin and our sense of bipartisan governance. And I'd ask you to reflect on that. I'd ask you to reflect on it because it's a unique feature to our state, and I think one that likely produces better policy outcomes in the end.
Thank you. And
because again, this God-given talent that we all have, that we all bring to bear, it is not given to us on a partisan basis. It is given to us as human beings, citizens of Texas.
Yes, sir. And I have thought about it. I've had discussions with legislators in other states. And, you know, the answer they give me, how the Democrats treat them in California, is they just laugh at them and tell them to win an election. And Virginia, you know, when the Democrats took over Virginia, the first thing they did was went after, you know, babies that survived abortions and then went after guns. They didn't ask permission. They didn't they had no concern, no hesitation to what the other party felt or thought. And in Texas, you know, I feel that we need to stand up for our values, considering some things going. We disagree on this, I fully expect. Just some decisions that's been coming down from Washington, D.C. I feel like Texas needs to stand up for itself. And it's very hard to do that, when leadership is in full agreement with what's going on in Washington, D.C. And I don't believe that allows us to fully represent Texas. And I do understand that being in the minority party, how it would make sense that you would like the idea of getting chairmanships, because then as you fight to win elections, and if those are unsuccessful, you still have, you know, success, and you have a foothold to stand on to influence legislation and leverage. So I totally understand and get that. It's basically where I'm at now. I presented the idea. I thought it would be something that would help with public policy and honor the will of the voter. But now that we've seen the Republican Party of Texas get behind this, the delegates get behind this, the voters in the primary got behind this, our leadership, the SREC's gotten behind it. It seems to be that this is some public policy that the Republican voters in Texas seem to really, really support. And I'm just trying to honor their wishes in presenting this time. Last time it was just an idea to present to the body for debate. This time I'm happy to do it with the help of the Republican voters. And, you know, that my district's different than yours, right? I mean, I'm a Republican. And so, of course, I see this a little different than you, and I would guess. And so, but anyway, I do appreciate it, and I have spent a lot of time talking and thinking about it, and I haven't neglected to think about the Republican voters that sent me here.
Have you ever voted for a bill authored by a Democrat?
I would bet I have. I mean, there's some things in the platform that I know Republicans and Democrats agree on. One of them, they go about it different ways, banning toll roads for different reasons. And as a matter of fact, when we stopped a toll road out in my area, the only people that came to our aid was the Democrat Party of Rockwall County. And so, yes, there's times that we
So one party
get
doesn't
along.
have a monopoly on great ideas, right?
No, I mean, it's possible anybody can present a good idea, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Members, any other questions? Okay, yes.
Good. I was just curious, so I'm presented this amendment, and some members have said that they've asked y'all to work on them. What, are y'all voting on these amendments, or what, are we just discussing them? Or I'm just curious what we were, kind of the end result today is.
We are not taking a vote today.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Slaton.
All right.
Mr.